First, I will do a quick birthing recap video for you guys who wanted to know about my birthing experience. I'm going to be really quick because Ryu's been asleep and he can wake up any minute now. And for those of you who don't know how to pronounce his name, it's Ryu. I think it's Japanese, but it's pronounced differently in Japan. It's pronounced like Ryu or Du or something like that. Like, it's completely different because they don't pronounce the Y, I think. But we liked Ryu, just the name of that it's kind of really cool. David said as a joke he used to play a game called Street Fighter, and that's where he got it from. And originally I was like, hell no. But then it kind of grew on me, and I said, if we have a boy and he looks like a Ryu, we could name him Ryu. And turns out we had a little boy and we named him Ryu. So that's that story. I really, really wanted a natural birth, vaginal birth as well. But then I was like, I know anything in birthing doesn't go to plan, so I was very open-minded. If I had to have an emergency C-section, I would have been open to that too. But I was trying everything to avoid that. So I did hypnobirthing classes and I could not recommend them enough. It was amazing. David even really liked it. So the fact that I did hypnobirthing and the fact that I actually applied it during birth was kind of like a big deal. So my birthing story isn't that interesting, but I thought it's positive, so I might as well share it. There was a little bit at the end that was a little bit traumatic. It was actually not that traumatic, I'm being dramatic, but it was just a bit crazy and scary. But I was glad that I did the hypnobirthing classes because it kind of prepared me for it. It gave me the ability to make calm, rational decisions and not freak out during labour. Went through the Buggerook unit there, which is like their Indigenous unit. So you get like a one-on-one midwife, and I cannot praise them enough. I mean, being a midwife would be a tough job in itself. Anyway, so Monday the 24th, my waters broke at 3 a.m. in the morning. So I woke up and it felt like I needed to pee. And it was like a mild period pain. It wasn't like anything crazy, anything bad. It just felt like, oh crap, I've got like a little bit of a cramp in my belly, but I need to pee. So I thought it could have been a poo as well. That was my thought. So it wasn't anything bad. I didn't think anything of it. So I tiptoed because David had to fly to Tasmania that morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. And as I went to open the door, I got a little squirt. And luckily I was wearing a pad at the time. I had a pad on, don't ask me why, but I had a pad on. And I've gone, oh crap, did I just pee my pants? And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I didn't really think anything of it. I went straight to the bathroom and I looked down at my pad half asleep, and there was like a bit of pink on my pad. Like, it looked bloody, but it wasn't bloody. It was just like a pink watery kind of consistency. And I was like, oh crap. And because everyone I know, my mom, my sister, friends who've just had babies, David's mom, even in the hypnobirthing classes, they say, you know, your waters are the last things to break. So in my head, I was like, oh, this isn't my waters. This is like my mucus plug / bloody show, which is the first thing that normally happens. And sometimes labor is like, you know, can still be a few weeks away, a few days away, who knows. So in my head, I'm like, that's not my waters, but it kept gashing out of me after I went to the toilet. So I was like, I better put a nappy on. And by then I kind of started freaking out a little bit, and I didn't want to, but I woke up David, and David was like, are you okay? And I was like, oh, I don't want to alarm you, but I think I had my mucus plug and my bloody show. And David's like, what the hell? And I showed him because I had the pad. And he's like, that's it, I'm not going to Tasmania because you have to fly to Tasmania at 8 o'clock. I'm like, no, still go, because I think I've still got like ages for birth. Like, I'm not having any contractions or anything. Like, it'll be fine, just go. I waited till 7 o'clock in the morning to call my midwife. Called my midwife. She was like, oh yeah, don't stress, because I said, oh, my mucus plug and bloody show. I went to like hang up and say, just, you know, take your time, don't bother coming to the hospital. And then I just kind of said, oh, well, I went to my second nappy. And she said, well, what do you mean you're on your second nappy? And I said, oh, well, it just keeps gashing out of me. Like, I keep peeing myself. And she was like, oh, that doesn't sound like your mucus plug and bloody show. That sounds like your water's breaking. And I was like, what? Like, what? I was so confused. And she said, if that's your waters, you're having the baby within the next 24 to 48 hours. I'm like, no. And I was already, not be happening now. But she's like, take your time, have a shower, have some breakfast, and then come to the hospital and do an assessment. And there was no like crazy contractions or anything. It was like slight contractions, more like period pain, and lower back pain. That was it. Nothing crazy. So had breakfast, had a shower, took my time, went to the hospital, and this was about 10 o'clock in the morning. Got there, they monitored the baby, they monitored me, the contractions went crazy, he was fine, he was such a chiller. So like, oh, you know, just go home, take as much time as you can at home, chill, and only come back if your waters start turning green, yellow, or red, or your contractions start becoming more regular. I went home and they said, if not, we'll have to induce you by 8 o'clock tomorrow and you'll have the baby tomorrow. And I kind of really wanted to just avoid an induction, because from all the classes I learned, it just kind of brings on contractions and stuff like that. So I didn't want to do that. I did it naturally. So we came home. I was like bouncing on the ball, like the little workout ball that you have that you sit on. I was drinking red raspberry leaf tea. David was amazing. He would massage me every time I got like contractions or pains in my lower back, and it really, really helped. And then also, not only that, I used the 10 machines. I didn't do that until later on, until the contractions started getting a little bit more unbearable. But that was amazing. I can highly recommend that as well. It kind of just like tricks your brain into thinking that when you have a contraction, it gives you like little pulses, and it kind of lessens the pain. So it was amazing. So I could be at home all day. It was no problem. I was fine. I was like literally having food, doing little things. We went for a little walk to try and bring on labor naturally. And then it got to about 9:30 and I started panicking because I started getting some blood coming through, and apparently that means that the cervix is opening. So there was some blood, and because I had my nappies on, when it got to a bit point where I was like kind of feeling the nappy, I was like, okay, no, I think we need to go to the hospital now. And I wasn't having crazy contractions. Like it was all bearable. Like it was annoying but not painful. Like they were just like lower back, and that was it. I was like, David, we got to go, let's just go to the hospital. Like I just want to go now. And I kept feeling like I needed to go to the toilet, like I needed to do a big poo. That was the feeling, sensation. So we went to the hospital, and by then it was like 10 o'clock. I'm super chill. I wasn't like getting crazy contractions. So they put me in this assessment room, and it was crazy busy. We heard like 3 different ladies screaming, giving birth. So I had to put my hypnobirthing Surge the Sea, which is like this meditation track that you listen to that calms you. So I had that in, and I was partly laughing because of the lady like going psycho at the nurse, like, don't tell me what to do. And David and I were kind of like laughing, but David's like, don't you laugh, this is going to be you in a second. So I had to put my, you know, my meditation on, calm out, zen out. So I was super calm, super chill. And then the lady, we were there for 45 minutes and no one had to come and saw us because that's how busy it was. So this other lady came in and she said, oh, you know, are you guys okay? You seem like you're fine. I was like, yeah, I'm fine. But in my head, I was like, I kind of want to go home if this is the situation, because I'd rather be at home doing this than in this room doing nothing. And by then I hadn't got a vaginal examination because they didn't want to risk infection, because I had my waters break. So there's no protection there for the baby. So they try and limit vaginal examination to see how far dilated you are. And mind you, my waters had broke at 3 a.m. that morning, and I hadn't had none. So as she went to leave, just before she went to leave, I got this really bad contraction. It wasn't like painful, but it literally felt like there was something coming out of me, and I stood up. So I was like, oh my God, I need a poo. And it felt like there was a poo coming like out of me. And the nurse was like, oh, hun, I don't know if that's a poo, that could be a baby's head. I was like, oh no, it doesn't feel like a head, it feels like I just need to go to the toilet. And I kept like needing to go to the toilet, and she's like, have you had a vaginal examination? And I said, no, I haven't, because they didn't want to risk infection. My midwife said to try and avoid it and to try and prolong it as long as possible. And she's like, well, do you mind if I do one? Do you consent to one? Because you can deny it if you want to. But I kind of really wanted to, because it was like, by then it was like 10:30 at night, and I really just wanted to see if I was dilated, if I should just go home and put up with, you know, the contractions. So she did the examination, and obviously David's there the whole time, and David just like freaking out about the whole situation. You're 7 centimeters dilated. We're going to have to put you into a birthing suite now. And she's like, I didn't think you were that far dilated. You were super chill, super calm. And I was like, oh, which is not like me. So that was a bit of a shock. Even David was a bit surprised. She told me I was 7 centimeters dilated. I kind of freaked out, because we also wanted to do cell care, and you have to let them know when you're 8 centimeters dilated, because they send out their own midwife to do the collection. So we called her. She came, and I felt so bad because she was there for hours. She came like within the hour, and because it took forever for Ryu to come out, she was there for the whole time, and I think she was there for like 4 hours, and I felt so bad. But we played cord clamping for like a minute. We got as much as we can for Ryu, and then we got a really good collection, so we were really happy with that. So then they put me into a birthing suite. By then they'd call my midwife, she'd come, and I'd actually dilated really quickly. Like I was 10 centimeters dilated within like the hour. So it means I was kind of ready, but Ryu's head was facing the front, which is posterior, I think it's called, and his head's meant to face my bum. So he was like spine to spine. So every contraction went for like 2 hours. He was naturally turning on his own, which was perfect. So he was turning himself. But by then, I think it was like so exhausting for me. I was so physically exhausted because my waters had broken 3 o'clock in the morning. I hadn't slept. I was dealing with on and off like contractions that weren't that bad, but obviously I couldn't sleep. So I was exhausted, and we tried literally every position. Like I was in the shower in hot water, I was squatting, I was on the toilet, I was on all fours on the bed. Poor David, oh, he was there for the whole thing. He was holding me, and I was squatting, trying to push him out, because he'd turned, and by then it was like 1:30 in the morning, maybe even 2 o'clock, and he'd turned ready to go. So his head would come to a point and just retract. And my midwife, again, was amazing. She bought her own like little lights. She made the mood for me. She put calming music on. It was just like the birthing experience I dreamt of. Like I really wanted a zen, chill birth. And she was amazing. I can't thank her enough. And David was also amazing. Can't thank him enough. I couldn't have done it with a better birthing partner. Anyway, at one point, I think it got to like 3 o'clock in the morning, and he still hadn't come, and I'd been pushing and pushing and pushing, and I just broke down. I was like, I'm failing at this. I'm gonna cry talking about this because I was like, I'm failing. I can't push him out. And they're like, no, you're doing amazing. Like you haven't had any drugs. This is like a natural. I don't know, I'm crying again. Sorry. And I just remember looking at David and I said, I'm failing. And he said, no, you're not. You're doing fine. So, why am I crying? Anyway, the doctor came in and said, look, we're probably gonna have to cut him out if he doesn't come out naturally, because obviously my waters are broken. Time was against me. I was literally falling asleep in between contractions, and my contractions weren't even that bad. So I was just like, that's the coffee machine. So I would literally fall asleep, and then they'd like, come on, you have to push when a contraction would come, and I was so exhausted I couldn't push. So they just said, look, we're gonna have to cut ya. So I kind of woke up because I was like, I don't want to use forceps, I don't want to use a vacuum, I want to try and do this as natural. I had another lady come in, and she was amazing, and she was like cheering me on, and she was like yelling at me and counting down with me, and I kept apologizing to her. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Anyway, long story, they did make a cut. It was a very tiny cut, and they used the vacuum to suck him out, and he came out. He was perfect, he was healthy. He weighed 3 kilos even, and he was 50.5 centimeters long. And he had like a little hat on his head because they had to suck him out. But other than that, it was such an amazing experience. It was just that pain at the end when they had to make the cut and they had to suck him out was the most painful thing, but it wasn't actually that bad because as soon as he was out, I forgot all about it. I didn't feel it. But yeah, it was amazing. So if anyone else had any questions, it wasn't that interesting, but that was just my birthing experience. I'm so glad that I did it without any pain relief. But again, I would say you don't have to be strong. You can do it if you need energy and you need rest. Like there's no harm in getting like an epidural or whatever. But I just could see the finish line, and we kept saying, oh, he's going to be 10 minutes away. But then it turned into like 3 hours later. But and the coolest thing was that we didn't know the sex. So when they pulled him out, I was so exhausted. I forgot that I didn't even know what the sex was. So they're like, oh, it's a little boy. Did you want to know? I'm like, oh my God, didn't even think about that. I forgot all about it. I was just so exhausted, and they gave him to me, and he was just cried for a little bit, but he was so perfect, and he was just so content and so alert and just looking around. And I look at David, he's crying. So I physically couldn't cry. I was so exhausted, but I was crying on the inside because David was crying, and it was just one big emotional love fest at the end. So yeah, it was just amazing. I couldn't recommend the women's enough. I went public, I didn't go private, and the public system was just amazing. And since then we've had like 3 home visits, and I've got another appointment I have to go to. So the support has been amazing. Like I have had such an amazing support. Yeah, so anyway, that's my birthing story. I hope everyone else can get something from it. I know it wasn't very interesting, but yeah, I think it's always also good to know about positive birthing experiences, so you can be in a positive mind frame when you go into birth. So good luck to anyone out there who is about to have a baby.